Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be going over a couple of different developments that have been happening with the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, and later on I will be doing another video, which is going to be my breakdown of the second trailer for Spider-Man: Far From Home. But first, let's get to the Sonic stuff, and as most people may know, the trailer for Sonic the Hedgehog dropped last week. I did a breakdown of it on the channel, but a lot of people did not like Sonic, including me. He looks very creepy. It's unsettling. It's very unsettling. And there's really not an adjustment period for it. It just looks freaky. So after the extreme amount of backlash that the trailer got, instead of doing the normal Hollywood, SJW NPC move of doubling down and saying, "Oh, you just hate it for X, Y, and Z." Instead, the director, Jeff Fowler, actually came out and said that they will rework the Sonic design to make him will be presumed to be closer to the video game and/or television cartoon version of Sonic. So they're not going to keep the current quote unquote realistic design of him. They're going to change it, which is very interesting and brings up a couple of issues. Now, look, uh, I applaud Jeff Fowler because you never see this anymore in Hollywood when somebody makes a movie for a property that people really love, and people see the trailer and they say that this looks like it sucks horribly. You don't see guys come out and say, "Oh, well, we'll change it. We'll fix it. We'll make this right." You don't see them do that ever. So this was shocking. This was extremely shocking to see, especially out of today's Hollywood, where today's Hollywood thinks that they know better than their own audiences, and we've seen how that works out at the box office sometimes. So the again, we haven't seen the changes, but this does bring up a few little small issues. One of them is the release date for this movie, which it comes out in July. Honestly, I think that's a death sentence for this film, but beyond that, you might see this film pushed back because of that, because it's going to take, depending on how much of the film Sonic is in, which I would assume he's in a decent amount of it. Um, uh, Looking at the director, Jeff Fowler, it's this is really his first large budgeted film that he's directed. He's really only directed two things. He directed a short called, I believe it was Gopher Long, um, and or Gopher Broke. But Gopher spelled like, the subterranean rat, not go for, two different words. Um, there was an animated short that was nominated for, I believe it was nominated for an Academy Award. I don't remember if it won one. But that's the only other thing that he's directed besides the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. And that was also in 2004. That was 15 years ago. So this is the first thing that he has directed since then, and it's really the only full length, full budgeted thing that he's directed. Now, what I will say is that I think that might have something to do with this, because he's a newer director for the most part. He's not, again, he hasn't been doing this for very long. I mean, he directed way back in 2004, but he doesn't have a lot of experience, especially with larger budgeted films. And this film is estimated to have a budget of about $90 million, um, which is substantially larger than I think anything he's ever worked with. So looking at that, this guy, he hasn't gotten to the point in Hollywood where he is essentially a snob. He hasn't gotten to the point where he is, he's just this snobby, arrogant piece of crap human being like a lot of Hollywood personalities are. He is currently at the point where he's still grounded. That's what it feels like. Is this director feels like he is grounded in what seems like reality, whereas a lot of Hollywood people seem like they're off in space. They're on Mars somewhere or something. But you know, this is a good sign. This is a good sign, because if this movie works, if he fixes it and people say, "Oh, it looks good," and then they go see the movie and they enjoy the movie, then this could turn some things around, especially for younger directors who are coming up, people that kind of don't have people that are a little too full of themselves. You can point at this as an example and you can say, hey, look what this guy did, and it made his movie better and people enjoyed it. As opposed to pointing at somebody like, let's say, a Ryan Johnson, who you point at him and you say, hey, look at that guy. He said F you to everything around him that everybody was saying, and he made a movie that most people hated, and successfully sank a franchise. So, yeah, you don't want to be the latter. You would rather be the former. And that's why I respect Jeff Fowler at this point, because he was willing to come out and say that, and they're willing to come out and do it. Now, whether or not that redesign actually works is a completely other question, but the fact that they're even going to do it and put time and money into it is saying something. So that's really the main thing I wanted to talk about here, was that, because I think that that's a really good point, and it's a difference maker in Hollywood these days to see something like that. The second thing, which was an article I came across, was apparently Tommy Wiseau, the Room Tommy Wiseau, is campaigning to attempt to get a part in either the Sonic movie or possibly one of the sequels as Shadow the Hedgehog, who is Sonic's evil doppelganger or something like that. He has his own character and stuff like that, but I haven't. I'm not that deep into the Sonic lore, so I don't know. But hearing Tommy Wiseau voicing an animated hedgehog would be one of the most hilarious things I think I've ever seen put to screen. And this is coming off. He's had a resurgence in recent years, where they had the biopic on The Room that came out, The Disaster Artist with James Franco and Seth Rogen. He had a Joker audition tape that went viral not long ago, and then he did a reading of the dialogue from the Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight, the scene where Batman and Joker are in the cell. And even though the recording of that is, or the tape of that is 100% Tommy Wiseau playing the Joker, and not, it's Tommy Wiseau in Joker makeup. It's not necessarily Tommy Wiseau playing the Joker, even though it's really just his broken English that messes with certain things. I mean, his physical acting, I think, is actually quite good, but even though he over exaggerates sometimes. But the voice and the mannerisms and the broken English is really what makes Tommy Wiseau that much funnier. And I think if you use that in something like a Sonic movie, that would be hilarious. Although you might want to have him play a comic relief character as opposed to Shadow the Hedgehog, because Shadow's supposed to be kind of like a serious character, I guess, from what I've read. So Tommy Wiseau, I guess, is campaigning for a role in the Sonic film or the sequel to it, and I, for one, would be interested just to see it, just because it's Tommy Wiseau. It's going to be hilarious no matter what the hell he does. So that was just kind of the second thing I wanted to touch on, because it gave me a bit of a chuckle. But you know, put what you think about this in the comments. Either of these two subjects, the fixing of Sonic in the film, or the CGI model, or Tommy Wiseau campaigning for a part in the Sonic movie, or its sequel, should that come out. Put what you think. Hit the bell for notifications, hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?